Hello, welcome for another edition of our video mailbox. Obviously we're into the heat and the dryness of August, and that means lots of folks are feeling the effects of the drought and are concerned about a farm bill. As a matter of fact, Roger from Vega writes, "My family and I watched in dismay as the Senate voted to pass the 2012 Farm Bill. While we applaud efforts to save taxpayers money, the focus on crop insurance as a means to achieve that goal and the threat of even deeper cuts to crop insurance concerned me deeply." Well, Roger, I agree with you. I'm concerned about those efforts. You know, the first thing we ought to talk about is the disaster assistance. Before Congress finished voting for the month of August, the House passed a disaster plan, which basically replenishes the disaster funds that we have had available for the last year or so. But you're right, the Senate went ahead and passed a full 5-year farm bill, and the House Ag Committee has passed out of committee a full 5-year farm bill, but it has not passed the full House yet. I think generally the House committee version is better for our region than the Senate bill, and there's lots of details to be worked out here. But it's more important that we get a good farm bill than it is that we just rush something through for the sake of having it done. I'm also very concerned about the point you mentioned, because in both bills, a lot of the direct payments go away. And that leaves crop insurance as really the centerpiece for farm bills going forward. In a lot of ways, I think that's appropriate. But if then people come and start attacking crop insurance, that's going to put everybody in a real bind. And so, I think we ought to take our time and make sure we do this right, particularly when we're talking about a 5-year bill, rather than try to rush something through and have a plan out there that doesn't really meet the needs of consumers. The other thing for all of us to keep in mind is that about 80% of the Farm Bill has nothing to do with farmers at all. It's nutrition programs. And so a lot of the controversy has been how much money do we continue to spend on food stamps and other nutrition programs? There's some of us that are trying to save some money there, at least versus what would have been spent otherwise. But that's been a big part of the holdup. We also have gotten a number of calls and letters and emails about the Department of Labor regulations related to what children could do on farms and ranches. We had a video mailbox on this subject a little bit earlier. But I keep getting mail. For example, Jim from Wichita Falls told me about his experience. Growing up in the Depression, at age 13, he began working summers for his uncle at a feedlot. He spent long days branding, dipping cattle, building fences, hauling hay, and fixing broken equipment. He said it helped build character, but also an appreciation for hard work. Well, Jim, that sounds a lot like the way I grew up too. I didn't work on a feedlot, but spent a fair amount of time branding cattle, fixing fences, doing a variety of things. I think it is good for me, but even more important, what's wrong is for the federal government to come in and tell us what we can and cannot do on our family farms and ranches. The good news is that there was such an outcry about this proposed regulation that the Department of Labor has withdrawn it at this point. And so earlier this year they said, never mind, we're not going to proceed on that new regulation. But you got to know it's in the back of some bureaucrat's mind. It's something we've got to stay vigilant about as just one of the more egregious examples of Washington trying to control our lives. We've got to stay on top of these things because they'll come back, I'm afraid. That's it for this edition of Video Mailbox. Thanks for taking time to listen.